Welcome to While We Were Distracted, the podcast where we explore topics that often get overshadowed in the rush of daily life.
Welcome back, deep divers. Today, we're taking you into a world you might not even believe exists. We're talking about the shadow government, a concept that suggests power operates beyond what we see, hidden from the public eye.
That's right.
Our guide for this journey, former CIA officer Kevin Shipp, and his story is more intense than any spy movie you've ever seen.
Seriously.
So buckle up.
It's going to be a wild ride.
We're going to unpack Shipp's claims, his firsthand account of what goes on behind those closed doors in the intelligence world, and, well, let's just say it's going to challenge some of your assumptions.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's dive right in. Shipp's path to becoming a CIA analyst was, let's just say, unusual.
Yeah, it's not your typical
He
story.
talks about this kind of checkered past he had in college. Not exactly what you'd picture for someone handling top secret information, right?
Definitely not. He even mentioned, struggles with drugs and alcohol during those years, which typically would be a huge red flag for any government position, let alone the CIA.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he had this friend already undercover in the agency who encouraged him to apply, but Shipp was like, no way, they'd never take me. But then, get this, the CIA keeps calling him back, interview after interview, even after he comes clean about everything during his polygraph test.
It's almost like they were looking for someone who didn't fit the mold. Maybe they wanted someone with a more diverse background, someone who could bring a different perspective.
It's really interesting to think about. So picture this. He's a starving biologist, right? Scraping by, and boom, lands a job at the CIA. Total shock.
Yeah.
He talks about how during training, they really drill this sense of elitism into you, like you're part of this exclusive club chosen for this super important work.
Yeah, that psychological conditioning is fascinating, isn't it? It's like they're building this intense loyalty, this feeling of being set apart, which could make recruits more likely to follow orders, even when things get morally tricky.
No kidding.
Yeah.
He starts out in the Security Protective Service, protecting personnel and facilities, both here in the U.S. and overseas. And listen to this. He even worked on William Casey's protective detail when Casey was the director of the CIA.
Wow, so he was right there in the thick of it, seeing firsthand how the operational side of intelligence works, all the risks, the secrecy involved in protecting those high-level officials.
Right. And you know that journalist, Bob Woodward, the one who claimed to have access to Casey during his final illness, Shipp debunked that whole thing. Said Woodward got caught trying to sneak in and was basically shown the door.
It shows you how tightly the CIA controls information, right?
Yeah.
They're managing the public narrative, even contradicting accounts from well-respected journalists. Like, how far would they go to protect their secrets?
Makes you wonder. But it wasn't all desk duty for Shipp. He joins a counter-espionage group, hunting for a mole inside the CIA, and then later he volunteers for an anti-terrorism assault team. He described it as a potentially one-way mission. He even had to get life insurance.
That's dedication. Volunteering for missions like that, facing death. It really speaks to how much he believed in what they were doing.
He actually talked about how a childhood experience, being diagnosed with a terminal illness and then making a full recovery after a prayer group prayed for him, it kind of instilled this sense of fearlessness in him, deepened his faith.
Wow, that's powerful. Such a life-altering event could really shape your worldview. Like maybe he felt he had a purpose, that he survived for a reason.
Yeah, it's incredible. So he goes through this intense training. Tactical shooting, counterterrorism driving, the whole James Bond shebang. He even described driving 80 miles an hour in the dark with another car ramming them from behind while an instructor is screaming in his face.
Talk about pressure. That training really shows what it takes to work in intelligence, the skills, the mental toughness, being able to function under extreme stress.
No doubt. And then he sent overseas to collect human intelligence, basically becoming a master manipulator, using assets to infiltrate governments, gather intel. He admits it took a toll on his moral compass, having to lie, steal, and drink with the enemy.
Yeah, that moral conflict, it's a constant struggle in that world, right? Doing things that go against your personal values, but it's for the mission, for the greater good, supposedly. The lines get blurry.
It's tough.
Yeah.
But he was good at it, so good that his division chief offered him a permanent position in the field, an offer he said nobody refused.
So he was successful, able to compartmentalize those beliefs to get the job done. It's a skill you see a lot in intelligence operatives, that emotional detachment.
Right. But then things take a turn. He's on assignment near the Soviet Union when this woman approaches him, asks if he wants to hear the gospel. At first he brushes her off, but then it hits him. He can't keep going down this path. Goes back to headquarters, turns down the offer, knowing his career is probably over.
Wow, that's a powerful moment, like a moral awakening. It shows how those personal convictions can clash with the demands of this secretive, often morally ambiguous profession.
It's like he needed to cleanse his soul, after all that. Really makes you think about the internal struggle, the guilt he must felt, doing things that went against his beliefs.
Definitely. Walking away from such a promising career, it really speaks volumes about his integrity, putting his principles first.
But hold on, there's more. While working on an assignment, examining computer system connections between the CIA and allied agencies, he stumbles upon a major security flaw.
It kind of shows you that even these top-notch intelligence agencies can be vulnerable, right? Like, they're not invincible. Human error, oversight, it happens.
He finds out that foreign intelligence services, even terrorist groups, could potentially access sensitive information through, get this, the visa sections of embassies. The computers there were actually connected to the CIA system.
Seriously, that's a huge risk.
Yeah, he was floored. And he did the right thing, reported it right away to the division responsible.
Like, he was trying to protect national security, even if it meant exposing flaws within the agency itself. That's a tough call.
You'd think they'd appreciate it, but instead of getting a pat on the back, the CIA tries to bury it.
What?
They claimed they never got his report, even though we sent it multiple times, even hand-delivered it.
Classic cover-up. It really makes it question their transparency, their accountability. Like, do they just want to sweep things under the rug?
It gets worse.
Ugh.
They tell him to drop it, and when he checks the CIA server, his report's gone. Poof.
Oof.
Erased. And his division chief actually threatens his career if he keeps digging. Crazy, right?
That's intimidation, plain and simple. And it's a scary reality for whistleblowers. They try to do the right thing and they get punished for it. It's messed up.
Thankfully, his immediate boss took a huge risk, leaked the report to the State Department's Senior Inspector General's office. They actually took it seriously, launched a global investigation, keeping it all hush-hush from the CIA.
So there are people within the system who are willing to do the right thing, even if it puts their own careers on the line.
3 months later, Shipp gets called back to the State Department. Turns out that vulnerability, it had been there for over 10 years. The State Department officially rebuked the CIA for putting their agents' lives at risk and for the cover-up.
That's huge. A direct rebuke from the State Department. It shows that even the CIA can be held accountable when there's enough pressure, enough evidence.
Shipp said that CIA official who threatened him, he was there during the whole thing and his face just went white as a sheet. He knew it was over.
I bet he did.
And of course the CIA retaliated. They assigned him to a contaminated house on this secret base, a place where they allegedly did all sorts of shady stuff.
That's just wrong. Using his housing assignment as a weapon, it shows how far they're willing to go to silence someone.
His family got sick, really sick. His son's immune system was compromised, his wife started having dementia, all sorts of debilitating symptoms. And the CIA, they would even let them have medical or environmental tests done.
That's heartless, denying them basic medical care. It's like they didn't even see them as human, just the threat to be neutralized.
And then they broke into his house. He knew something was up, so he put tape seals on all the doors and windows, had a voice-activated recorder, a motion-activated siren, the whole 9 yards.
He was prepared. Smart move, considering his training. He knew their tactics.
He comes home, all the seals are broken. The recorder caught someone using a master key rummaging around, and the alarm goes off, but it's shut off instantly.
Someone who knew exactly what they were doing, not your average burglar.
There was even this invisible chemical paint brushed on the ceiling, only visible under a black light. It's like something out of a spy novel.
Straight out of a movie. It's chilling to think this actually happened. They were sending a message, loud and clear.
He knew his family wasn't safe, so he files a personal injury lawsuit against the CIA. But they threatened him, his family, with jail time if they talked about any of the evidence he had collected.
So they were trapped, silenced. What a horrible situation. It really highlights the risks whistleblowers take, the pressure they face.
He felt he had no choice. He went public, became a whistleblower, tried to get his story out there, contacted major media outlets like the Washington Post, hoping they would expose the CIA.
Well, you'd think they'd jump on a story like that, right? Exposing government corruption.
He quickly realized they weren't interested in rocking the boat with the CIA. He said the reporter kept pushing for classified information, which he refused to give. He even thinks the Washington Post tipped off the CIA about his contact.
Wow. That's disturbing. It makes you wonder about the influence these agencies have on the media. Like, Self-censorship out of fear.
He even brought up Operation Mockingbird, that CIA program from the Cold War, where they supposedly used journalists to spread propaganda.
That's a whole other rabbit hole. But it raises the question, right? Is that still going on today, maybe in a different form?
Shipp thinks so. He believes major media outlets are still protecting the CIA, afraid of retaliation, of losing access. He even mentioned the Trusted News Initiative, where intelligence agencies, media outlets, and social media companies work together to censor information they deem harmful or misleading.
That's pretty concerning. Control over the flow of information, that's a powerful tool. It raises questions about freedom of the press, censorship, and manipulation of public perception.
He believes any journalist who digs too deep into a real CIA story, they get blacklisted. He even names specific publications he thinks are involved.
It's worrying, if true. It really underscores the need for independent journalism, for alternative sources that aren't afraid to hold these powerful institutions accountable.
Since becoming a whistleblower, he's faced a lot of personal attacks. He's been called a conspiracy theorist, a rogue CIA employee. Those labels get thrown around a lot to discredit anyone who questions the official story, especially when it comes to powerful organizations.
It's a classic tactic, right? Discredit the messenger instead of addressing the message. It happens all the time.
He even claimed the term conspiracy theorist was actually coined by the CIA, specifically to discredit people who question the JFK assassination.
Wow. That's a powerful example of how language can be used to shape the narrative, to control the conversation. Makes you think twice about the words we use, especially when it comes to sensitive topics.
It's a chilling thought, isn't it? That these tactics might still be used today to shut down anyone who dares to question the official line, especially when you're talking about an agency like the CIA.
It really highlights the need for critical thinking, media literacy, being able to sift through all the information out there, figure out what's credible, what's not.
Exactly. Shipp believes the CIA is behind a lot of major events that have shaped our world. And he's not shy about sharing his theories, even when they go against the grain.
He definitely doesn't hold back, but his willingness to challenge those established narratives, to offer alternative explanations, even if they're controversial, it makes you think, right? Like, maybe there's more to the story than what we've been told.
He believes they were involved in the assassinations of JFK, MLK, even the attempt on President Trump's life. He also suggests things like Pearl Harbor, 9/11. They were false flags, orchestrated to sway public opinion, justify wars.
Those are some heavy accusations. Whether you believe them or not, it brings up a crucial point, that intelligence agencies do have the capacity for covert operations, for deception, for potentially undermining democratic principles. It's a conversation worth having.
He points to evidence like the lack of wreckage at the Pentagon on 9/11, the passport issue, the collapse of Tower 7, which some experts believe was a controlled demolition. He even mentioned the strange short selling of airline stocks just before 9/11 by a company linked to a high-ranking CIA official.
Yeah, these are all pieces of evidence that have been debated for years, but hearing it from someone who is inside the CIA, it adds another layer of intrigue to the whole thing.
He firmly believes in the existence of a shadow government, unelected individuals pulling the strings with a ton of power and influence, operating outside the law, manipulating global events for their own gain.
It's a concept that pops up a lot when you're talking about power and conspiracy. That deep distrust of authority, the belief that there are hidden agendas driving everything. It's a scary thought, but it's out there.
Shipp's story is a stark reminder of what happens when power goes unchecked. And it takes a lot of guts to stand up for what you believe in, especially when you're facing that kind of pressure, that kind of personal risk.
It's inspiring in a way. His willingness to speak out, despite the consequences, it shows the importance of whistleblowers. They're the ones who shine a light on the darkness, hold those in power accountable.
He really urges people to question everything they hear, especially from official sources from the mainstream media, to do their own research, think critically about the information they're consuming.
It's crucial, especially in this day and age, with all the information overload, the misinformation swirling around, media literacy, critical thinking. Those are essential skills.
He also talks about the importance of faith, of moral courage, of standing up for what's right, even when it's hard.
It's a powerful message. His journey shows how strong convictions can give you the strength to challenge authority, expose wrongdoing, even when you're facing serious risks.
He believes the truth will come out eventually, even if it takes time, even if it requires sacrifice.
It's a message of hope, of resilience, the idea that even in the face of adversity, truth and accountability can prevail.
He talks about his latest book, Twilight of the Shadow Government, how transparency will kill the deep state. and encourages people to check out his YouTube channel, his social media, for more info.
He's putting himself out there, trying to raise awareness, engage in the conversation. It's empowering people to question authority, to seek out the truth for themselves.
He even published the book without CIA approval, knowing they might try to shut it down.
Wow, a true act of defiance. He's prioritizing truth and transparency above his own safety.
His story is an incredible glimpse into the world of intelligence, power, the struggle for transparency. It's a lot to take in.
It is. But it's a necessary conversation. His insights make you think about the possibility that there are forces at play that we don't fully understand, shaping events, influencing our perceptions. It's a bit unsettling, but it's important to be aware of it.
Absolutely. The big takeaway for me is we can't be passive. We can't just accept the information we're given, especially when it comes from those in power. We have to ask those tough questions, dig deeper, consider different perspectives.
He's reminding us that truth often comes from challenging the accepted narrative, from holding those in power accountable. Critical thinking, independent research, open dialogue, those are the keys to navigating this complex world we live in.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot to wrap your head around.
It really is.
This whole idea of shadow government, people operating behind the scenes, calling the shots, it can sound kind of, I don't know, far-fetched, right?
Yeah, you almost think, is this a movie plot?
But then you hear Shipp's story, his experiences, the evidence he lays out. And it's like, wait a minute, maybe there's something to this.
It definitely makes you question things.
It raises some big questions like, how much do we really know about what's going on in the world? Are there these unseen forces pulling the strings, shaping events, controlling what we see and hear?
It's unsettling for sure.
It is. And Shipp argues that secrecy is the key for this shadow government. They operate in the dark, where it's hard to track them, to hold them accountable.
Right, they thrive on that lack of transparency.
And he believes they have their hooks in all sorts of institutions, intelligence agencies, media outlets, financial systems, using them to push their agenda.
It's like a web of influence, a network of power that extends far beyond what we typically see.
He even connects this to the idea of a deep state. You know, those entrenched bureaucrats, officials who wield power regardless of who's in office, who the voters choose.
It's almost like a government within a government operating independently, potentially undermining the whole democratic process.
It's a scary thought. And his claims about the shadow government's involvement in events like the JFK assassination, Pearl Harbor, 9/11, those are really hard to ignore.
Yeah, those are some of the biggest, most impactful events in history. And he's basically saying they were orchestrated, manipulated to serve some hidden agenda.
He brings up evidence that's been debated for years, but when you hear it from someone who's inside the CIA, it hits differently. Like the missing wreckage at the Pentagon, the passport that supposedly survived the collapse of the Twin Towers, the way Tower 7 fell, which some experts say points to a controlled demolition.
It makes you wonder if there's more to the story than what we've been told.
Right. And he even mentioned that whole thing about the airline stocks being short-sold just before 9/11 by a company with ties to a high-ranking CIA official. That's pretty suspicious, right?
It's definitely something that warrants further investigation.
Whether you believe all of his conclusions or not, it's hard to deny that he raises some valid points, some questions that deserve to be explored.
Absolutely.
So what does this all mean for us? I think Shipp's message is a wake-up call. We need to be aware, to be vigilant, to understand that there might be these unseen forces at play.
Right. We can't just blindly accept what we're told, especially when it comes from those in power.
We need to be skeptical, to think critically, to demand more transparency.
It's about empowering ourselves, taking responsibility for our own understanding of the world.
And Shipp reminds us that it's up to us, the citizens, to hold those in power accountable.
To demand answers, to seek truth, to not be afraid to ask those tough questions.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the shadow government, what resonates with you most from Shipp's claims? What questions are you left with? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments.
And if you want to explore this topic further, we've included links to Shipp's book, his YouTube channel, and other resources in the show notes.
Until next time, stay curious and keep questioning.
If you enjoyed this episode of While We Were Distracted, be sure to watch the video that inspired it. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. It really helps.